Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Harvey Levin here.
Jason, Derek here.
3 lawyers.
Wow. What more could you want?
Let's start billing now.
Start the clock, everyone. 6-minute increments.
We got a lot to talk about. And we're going to do a little surprise here. But we're going to start with Elon Musk. I find this really interesting. Elon Musk has pushed the pause button on buying Twitter. And the reason is sort of murky, but I think the reaction to it is telling that the stock plunged like 25% in pre-market trading. To me, I think that's a statement that people want Elon Musk to own Twitter.
I want to give a little more perspective on the 25% decline because the market at large, and specifically the tech-heavy stocks like Twitter, are not down. They are up by vast quantities in early trading. But Tesla is bucking that trend and is Twitter is bucking that trend and is way down. And I think it's impossible to disassociate that from Elon Musk's decision to halt the transaction, to halt the purchase of Twitter.
This is what's fascinating.
It's a reaction to it. Yeah,
100%. The stock movement is a reaction to Elon Musk's
Elon Musk
announcement. He moves markets.
He moves markets the way presidents move markets. I mean, honestly,
it's remarkable.
It is remarkable.
He moved cryptocurrency when he mentioned Dogecoin. Dogecoin moves up. This is a man who commands tremendous influence over the stock market and other markets.
Who's more influential in the world? Well, I mean, look, there are obviously leaders, but when you take leaders out, leaders of countries, who's more influential than Elon Musk?
Nobody. He's the most influential non-politician, non-president, king, pope in the world.
I would argue more than anybody in Congress.
Way more than anyone.
Yes, of course. Their vote is diluted. Right,
there
exactly.
There are serious people at business schools who talk about the Elon Musk effect. This will be taught in schools. When he tweets, he moves the markets, and he did it today. Now, what's interesting to me about today is he vacillating on the purchase, right? Because what I think he's referring to is whether 5% of the users that Twitter said in a recent securities filing are actually spam bots. This is called a material adverse change in a deal, right? He wants to know whether he's actually buying something that has 229 million active users or something that has vastly less than this and a bunch of bots. And this could be a way out of the deal. And if he backs out, that's why the stock is
push the price
tanking.
down.
Or leverage to get it cheaper.
And I think the leverage makes more sense, and I'll tell you why. He wants Twitter.
He says he's committed to it.
Look, if he has 197 million versus 229 million users, it still has vast influence, and he can then build it higher. And I think this is a play to know exactly what he's getting, maybe ask to lower the price if there's more than 5% of the spam bots, and he's going to buy this thing.
Yeah, I think you're right with one caveat. I think he might have been starting his diligence on this company, and this company doesn't really make a lot of money.
That's right.
And Elon Musk is at his heart a capitalist. I know he wants Twitter for all these political reasons.
But then you lower the price and build it.
Yeah, it's hard.
But it doesn't just not make a lot of money. It may not make a lot of sense to make money. Right? It is not a platform that relies on video, on run of video. That's how so many of these other sites make it. And I don't know what the core business of Twitter is that can really monetize effectively, and we've seen that throughout Twitter's history.
He can change it.
He could.
I mean, and look, a guy who has never ever studied rocketry picks up some books and then does what NASA couldn't do for 50 years. You can't count him out monetizing Twitter.
Let me ask this question about his influence. Do you think it's both? Both is the answer, but which one is more? Is it his business savvy? Is that why he's so influential? Or is it his ability to manipulate the media and get things done that get him positive news? Is it the cult of personality or is it his business savvy?
Okay, I want to answer it by way of example because I think that's a great question. I think both, and I'll tell you why. I think Elon Musk is the modern day Andy Warhol.
Oh, okay. It wasn't what I was.
Wow.
I know.
I haven't heard him called Warhol.
I think he is. I'll tell you why. Andy Warhol somehow, decades before social media, decades before the internet, figured out the equivalent of social media, that he was on every media platform. It was Andy Warhol TV, Andy Warhol Films, Andy Warhol Art, Andy Warhol Events, Studio 54. He was just everywhere in pop culture. He made a lot of money in art and a fair amount of money in television, but he basically had the psyche of the world that he was molding. And I think Elon Musk is kind of the same guy.
Yeah, look, I think he's a visionary.
Why
in certain
is your
respects.
mouth open?
No, I'm just trying to parse together. I don't know enough about Andy Warhol to make the comment, but it seems that Andy Warhol was first and foremost an artist. But maybe the equivalent is there.
You got to know. You got to know more about Warhol.
Yeah,
he was, and you've got to see this documentary.
Yeah.
It's so good. But he was everything about. He was the center of pop culture.
Yes,
he was the center of pop culture. Elon Musk wants to be that too.
Yeah.
And to some extent he is. And pop culture can make you money, AKA not AKA, but best example, Kim Kardashian.
Right.
So it can make you money. He is using social media to push all of his projects. He's Andy Warhol.
Huh? I like it.
I'm way less impressed with Elon Musk. We talk about this all the time. I think he's a visionary. I think he's a futurist. I think the world loves a good vision, and he has painted a very successful one. I think his companies aren't worth nearly as much as he says they're worth. And people attach to the personality, and that's fine.
I wish I were your age, because I'm not going to live to see the impact that Elon Musk will have in the world over the years. I think he is going to be like an Einstein. I mean, he already has done all this stuff. And look,
he's also got some stinkers. He's tried to
stinkers.
bore a hole under the ground. And
by the way,
that's gone nowhere. That
could work eventually.
Sure, all of these things could work eventually. He drove a car 25 miles an hour underground, and everyone was like, "This is stupid. We already have subways." There's a lot of dumb ideas.
If you are afraid of failure, you will never succeed.
No. But he has failed in some stuff. But I'm with Derek in that I think his reputation is a little bit overblown. But I will say that what he has done for the electric car industry, that these $100 billion in investment couldn't do from the biggest car companies in the world for decades, and then SpaceX is
unprecedented.
And the car thing.
One of those things would be unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah.
And now he's going to transform Twitter.
And by the way, and
or back out of the deal and keep us too far.
And we got to move on. But look, there's one other thing that is probably bigger than Twitter, bigger than Tesla, bigger than rocketry, and that's Neuralink. Neuralink will change humanity.
Yes.
I mean, it will change humanity. If he can implant something in people's brains where you can cure strokes, you can cure paralysis, you can cure epilepsy, and then you move on to essentially put Google in everybody's brain, it will change humanity.
It may also lead to the singularity, and all people will become victims of the machine overlords.
Right. Well, I didn't say it was a good thing. Okay, so we're going to do something different in a minute, but let's just for a minute talk about Travis Scott. That now there is a woman who has amended her lawsuit that she filed against him, a woman who was injured at Astroworld because she says that she suffered a miscarriage as a result of the injuries that she sustained from the crush in the crowd at Astroworld.
It's fascinating. The miscarriage is recent because she originally filed a lawsuit that was one of the typical Astroworld lawsuits. It was not a wrongful death. She said she got trampled during the crowd crush. It was that kind of lawsuit. Her amended complaint is now added this, so it's clear that the miscarriage has happened relatively recently after she filed the initial lawsuit. So what does that mean in Texas, Jason?
Well, thanks for asking, Derek. So under Texas law, so what happens, right?
Have we just done local news here?
Yeah. Throwing it over to you.
Back to you, Jason.
She's pregnant at the time of the injury, but the child apparently is okay, and so she files like you said, a normal personal injury lawsuit. The child then dies, and now she's amended to file a wrongful death action, a civil suit. This is not a criminal; it's a civil complaint,
right?
Seeking damages for the death of her son, and there was her child, her unborn child, and so. There were a lot of tie-ins there between that and the recent Supreme Court activity concerning abortion, because a unborn child has now died, and she is suing as if that unborn child was a living person because it's a wrongful death action.
Now you're saying child. Here's what I wonder.
Yeah.
I don't. Based on what I know about the law, it doesn't have to be a child. This could be a 3-day-old fetus.
This could be a couple cells.
Yes,
not even a fetus, a ball of cells.
So under Texas law, from the point of fertilization, if somebody does something that causes the death of that fertilized egg, or all the way up to a fully termed fetus, then that person can be charged with, they can be
Not
sued for
charged.
wrongful
That person
death.
counts as an individual who died.
Right.
For wrongful death statutes. So
So-
from gestation, all the points of gestation.
So the Supreme Court draft opinion, if it becomes law, could have a direct impact on a wrongful death case like this.
Well, it's hard to say because these laws have existed even in the Roe world, obviously.
Right, but what if it's a
Yeah.
2-day-old fetus? Is that something where you could get wrongful death damages?
You could under Texas law, and I think most
That's what
states
I'm
have
saying.
similar laws.
But that's
yeah.
what I'm saying. That if that Supreme Court opinion sticks,
Yeah.
and 26 states and maybe more really severely restrict abortion and then redefine what constitutes
Yeah.
life, it could have an impact here too.
Here's the real thing. There's also many criminal overlays to these kinds of lawsuits.
Right.
And here's what it really is. If as we think it will be, Roe is overturned, when right now mothers who decide to end pregnancies are obviously not folded into these laws because they're protected by the Constitution. When that goes away, somebody who actually goes in and has an abortion, a woman who does, can potentially be charged for as a crime for the act, or sued by, for example, the child's father for wrongful death. And that's really where the absence of Roe to protect the mother is going to come in these cases.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to do something different. What's on your mind? Let's make this a little bit of a free-for-all. Derek, you start.
Yeah. My mind this week has been entirely occupied by the sudden collapse of the crypto market. So I've invested a lot in crypto, not more than I was willing to lose. Always knew that it would be problem.
That's a lie because you're willing to lose zero.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
Boy, is that the
Fair.
truth.
No one likes losing anything.
Boy, is that the truth.
But what it's exposed for me is, the whole economy is in collapse, but crypto in particular is interesting because it's entirely based on faith. And once faith starts to rattle a little bit, these things can go to zero. Companies like GM and Tesla and big companies on the stock market aren't going to go to zero because they have hard assets. There's something valuable. They're producing something for the market. What's interesting to me about Bitcoin and Ethereum is that these things can go to zero. They go into what's called a death spiral.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are doing it right now. We've seen some of these stable coins go into death spiral because once people stop believing in them, there's nothing undergirding it. Once you don't believe, one person sells, it puts downward price pressure on it, and there's nothing to hold it. There's no floor.
So let me ask you a question. A lot of people,
watch.
especially big investors in crypto, try to draw the equivalence between a cryptocurrency, which is something created in the private market. It doesn't, you can't touch it. It just exists because people tell you it exists. And what's called fiat currency, which is government issued currency, the dollar. There's nothing backing that either, right? We've been off the gold standard for 100 years now. Why is there a distinction between people's faith in Bitcoin and electronic currency, virtual currency, and the actual dollar that you can touch? Why is it any different? It's all just people's faith in it,
Well, it's
right?
regulation too, because there are people. I saw a report last night that this guy lost his entire life savings. It was just taken.
Yes.
And because there's a lack of regulation, that to me is the scariest thing. It's like, honestly, why would anybody put their money and their life savings into something where that can happen? And it can. So it's worse than going to Vegas, because at least in Vegas,
You have a chance. Yeah.
you have a chance, you know when to stop, or you at least can stop. Here, if you're letting it ride, it could just, and it did. It's evaporating for people where they're losing their life savings.
What's fascinating is where you say it comes from is exactly from that impulse where you say it's not regulated so you can lose it all. That's what actually formed cryptocurrency, is a distrust in government entities and the Fed in regulating currency.
Look what's happening.
No, I hear you.
Do you think that's what caused it, or do you think it's
absolutely,
everybody wanted to get rich as quickly as possible and not work for a living?
I think the original,
that
that as well. But the original insight was decentralization of currency. Why should we trust governments to manipulate our currency with interest rates? We can do this ourselves.
And by the way,
this is the problem with doing it yourself.
This happened in the late 90s too. I mean, you said that there's this death spiral. That happened in the 90s, and I'm here to talk about it because it happened to me.
Yeah.
And, all the tech stops not only tanked,
Yes.
but they went away.
There was nothing there.
And the lesson I learned, by the way, was do not listen to people at the gym. By the way, if anybody from the gym is listening here, I love you guys, but I am not taking your advice anymore because and the reason I'm raising this is I was stupid, and I'm kind of like overhearing conversations and saying, "Oh, that sounds good," and then I would go home and make a call, and I lost my shirt.
Yeah.
And so, I think about the equivalent of the gym with Matt Damon, And, Matt Damon is this bright, successful guy who has influence. And this is not shade on Matt, but, he does these commercials and people say, oh, well, Matt Damon's doing it, so I'll do it too. And now all of a sudden it's come home to roost.
Yep.
It's like, I know on one level I'm thinking people are going to finally learn, just don't listen to a celebrity because they say buy it, but they're going to do it. I mean, it's just going to happen over and over and over again.
Sure.
But
that's why Crypto.com hired Matt Damon.
That's right.
Follow
I know
Matt
how
Damon.
influential he was, and I'm assuming here that Matt Damon has a huge equity stake in Crypto.com, and I think he's probably lost
a lot,
ton of money.
A lot of money. And how did Larry Davis escape this?
Larry David,
right? How did Larry David escape
Nobody
this?
listened to him in the first place to buy crypto.
Well,
he was
he's
he was so
curmudgeonly
funny.
Teflon.
Who's gonna listen to an 80-year-old man talking about crypto? It just doesn't.
That was the best commercial of the Super Bowl.
I know, it really was.
Okay, yours.
All right, I want to talk about hoarding. So Laura Ingraham, the conservative
Topic I know
firebrand,
well, yes.
Conservative firebrand came out with a silly comment. Whatever, I'm not going to go in on her, but she said that she said on her show, I believe yesterday, she said it's we never saw this kind of hoarding that we're seeing with baby formula and the like under Donald Trump. People quickly point out that the greatest hoarding incident in U.S. history happened at the beginning of the coronavirus, which was under Donald Trump. Putting that aside, I want to talk about hoarding for a second. The morality of hoarding. So.
The morality of hoarding.
We are a capitalist society.
You're going to find me quite immoral.
We are a capitalist society.
Right.
And if there's an opportunity to, that paper towels are in short supply and you're going to go to CVS and there's a whole rack of paper towels, should you not, in a capitalist society, have the right to buy up all 200 bundles of paper towels, or in this case, all 200 bottles of canisters of baby formula, and then sell them on the open market for whatever the market will bear for that price?
I think we just learned Jason's a price gouger. I think
Or-
he's the guy who likes to collect canisters of
But
gasoline
I just
during
think
the
about it,
apocalypse.
but I actually
Wait a
don't-
minute. I got to stop you. I got to stop you for a second.
This is revelatory. I love it.
If we're talking about, if we're talking about, I don't know, paper towels, fine. Make the argument.
The guy did it with hand sanitizer.
But dude, people are driving to different states to get formula for their. Oh, let me just make my point. To get formula for their babies, they're being warned: don't dilute it with water because water can upset the baby. Don't change the formula because it can also upset the baby. And so there are people who can't feed their kid.
Yeah.
So it is different than paper towels or bundt cake.
Okay, so I got you just where I wanted
His
you to
ending
go.
was "Have you no decency?" That was the end of that.
Exactly.
statement before
But
you jumped in.
I think I got this right where I wanted to go. So we all agree that in a civilized society, baby formula should be, and this is where government steps in and government can regulate these things and pass price gouging laws. But these laws were also implemented when it came to paper towels, and they were.
But I'm saying paper
this
towels.
is not. I get water in a hurricane. The government steps in. They stop what you can
But
do.
baby formula too.
But baby formula too. I totally agree.
Gas
There's no
gouging.
disagreement.
There's just a few essentials.
But
that
gas
people-
is that where does that fall on the? I
I don't know. I would ask you.
just
Is it an essential?
The hoarding has gotten a really bad name, and I think that good. So Elon Musk.
Has it?
Elon Musk.
No, but has it gotten a bad
You were
name?
talking about how great Elon Musk is. Elon Musk saw the silicon chip shortage coming before anybody else did, and he entered into exclusive agreements with the people that produce these semiconductor chips to basically corner the market. So he had them and nobody else did, which is why Tesla was able to continue its production long after others were suffering from, GMs and the others were suffering from the supply chain shortages. He hoarded chips.
Are you equating silicon chips with baby formula?
I'm not, and that's why I said there's an exception.
No,
But
it's where that line is drawn.
brilliance.
Yes, absolutely.
But somebody does it with, diapers in a pandemic, and that's considered
And all of a sudden,
immoral
you're
and
the
evil.
worst person in the world.
Yeah.
I agree. It's look, where you draw that line, it sounds like you draw it a little differently than most people. But I would say baby formula is pretty plainly in the necessity
we all agree on baby formula.
Oh my God.
What's your topic, Harv?
You
asked what was in our hearts, Harvey, and mine was crypto, and Jason's is
You asked
price
what's on my
gouging.
mind.
Yeah.
I don't really see a heart. Oh my God. Okay.
Harvey is shaking.
No, I kind of expected it. I don't want to give mine. You give one more and then we're out.
Well, the thing that's bothering me right now is that Harvey is facing me and his fly is open, and I can't.
Oh, shit.
I just
It's not open.
Right.
No, it's this.
You asked what was on our mind.
Yeah,
and that's
no.
been on his mind the whole time.
First of all,
he
you don't
turned
have
to me with
first
anger.
of all, you don't
over
have
the
to
baby.
look.
No, you turned to me with anger
Well, you
over
don't
the
have to
baby
look.
formula thing, and all of a sudden, I'm like, good God.
You don't have to look, but what'd you think?
Would you stop it? Oh my God.
About
no,
what you'd
seriously, is
expect.
there anything on your mind? I know that documentaries are sometimes on your mind. What are you watching?
It scared the shit out of me. Oh God, this Boeing documentary. I literally turned it off because I said I am getting so freaked out that I don't think
You got to give people a little context. Your
Well-
fascination with airlines is knows no bounds. Harvey can name the specific details.
Washington D.C.
of
late
flights.
70s.
the United Airlines crashed into the Potomac Bridge, and
You used to be able to tell me exactly how many people on board died.
I know I was going to tell you. Not everybody died in that flight.
Right.
I want to say around 43,
Okay.
but yeah.
He is the Eric Colley of
That was-
airline disaster.
Right.
So this is a documentary about Boeing and that it was the gold standard for safety for many, many years. And then it merged with McDonnell Douglas. And McDonnell Douglas's
Culture was very different.
was about profits and not safety. And they started cutting all these corners. And ultimately, you get to the 737 MAX, where there is a crash and there are warning signs that there's something wrong with this airplane. And Boeing is like, no, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And then a second one crashes. And I knew about all of that. But what I didn't know was they start showing all of the cutting of corners, where I turned it off when this one guy who was on the assembly line was told to do something or not to do something that really cut corners, and his mouth was agape for 20 seconds listening to this. And I'm watching this guy who's putting this airplane together thinking, and then they're showing with these wires that are frayed, and they're putting crap on top of the wires.
Yes, and they just drill it closed.
And
everything.
it reminded me, I once hired a contractor to do some stuff in my house, and I walked into one of the rooms that he was working on, and one of the walls was open, and he had all these newspapers in the wall that he was just using to fill the void. And he looks at me and he says, boy, this is the first time I got caught doing that. And I was thinking of that when I was watching this documentary, and I just thought, I've got to turn this thing off. It was freaking me out, honestly.
He was like, you should see what I put in your floors that already.
No, did you finish it?
I have seen the documentary. I think it's fascinating. I didn't know anything about the pressure to create.
How can you watch that and not get freaked out?
I was freaked out. The pressure to create the new line that became the Aero, that became the 737 MAX, that it was just an old fuselage that they sort of, rejiggered in some ways. And it's wild to me. These machines carry hundreds of passengers, and the way they sort of cut corners to just get it produced and meet their projections for the stock market after McDonnell Douglas is jaw-dropping.
Hey guys,
it's shocking.
We're gonna stop. I can't handle hearing this anymore. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Thanks, Ed.